Hello and welcome to the third lecture of Conversational Agents. My name is Marijn Bruines, and in this lecture we will be discussing linguistics. In this first part, I will be introducing linguistics to you. So linguistics is the study of language. So first, I want to take a moment to appreciate what a strange thing language is. So, for example, the sentence, "What is language?" can be represented by these letters. It can be represented phonetically, as written here in the second part, or it can be represented by the audio stream, as visualized at the bottom. But it's a really strange thing, language. So basically what you're doing is you're listening to a guy on a screen who makes strange hums, hisses, clicks, while he's exhaling. So why are you doing that? It's not because the sounds that I'm making are particularly interesting or pleasant to hear. No, it's because in these sounds that I make, I have encoded information. And by listening to that, you are able to decode that information. And in this way, we can share ideas. So language is a structured system of communication. In a broader sense, it's the method of communication that involves the use of languages. So French, English, Dutch, German, Chinese. And this scientific study of this phenomenon is called linguistics. So if you want to know more about language, some background information that I can point you to is, for example, Professor Steven Pinker, who has excellent YouTube lectures on language. So he's a professor at Harvard, and one of the things that he says is language is the jewel in the crown of cognition. And it's the most distinct feature that sets us apart from animals, apparently. So he clearly sees language as a sign of intelligence, although some might disagree. So this course is about conversational agents. So it begs the question, when does language becomes conversation, right? Conversational agents, language, how do they relate to each other? So it might surprise you that there is not really a clear definition of conversation, despite what the book might say, because well, some people do think they have a clear definition. But then you might also go online and find different definitions. But at least, in my view at least, conversation means that it's language used by multiple parties. So there is an aspect of interactivity. The parties respond to each other. And maybe there's also information exchange. It might include also different modalities, so not just speech, sound, or written text, but it might also mean hands, facial expressions, etc. Multiple communication channels can be involved. So for example, what we're doing now is a video. You're watching a video. It's not me speaking to you directly. It's speaking to this camera here and to this microphone, and you listen to me through a screen and a speaker set. So that's different than from, say, a lecture hall where I'm speaking to you directly and I can actually see you and then respond to what you're doing. So is this a conversation? We're trying to make it look like it maybe, but it's not, right? So conversation might also deal with different tasks and there might be different goals in there. I told you it's not really clear what a conversation is, and this is my argument for or against that it's clear what a conversation is, because is this a conversation or not? So I want you to look at this little video clip and then ask yourself, are these kids using language? Are they in a conversation? So it's pretty clear that they're interacting with each other. You can see that. They are making these nice turns, so they're waiting for the other, they're responding to each other, But is there content in there? Maybe not. But then again, they are smiling, so maybe there is content in there, right? So that's some of the questions that linguists might ask. So in linguistics, I think there is three things that you can distinguish that are very important. So one is the study of the form. So that has to do with the phonology, so the sounds, what kind of sounds do they make? What do these sounds sound like? So then you go into phonology, and then so that's like parts of words, right? And then you have morphology. It's again still the form, right? So the formation of words, and also on a different level, where do these words come from? So like in the picture I showed in an earlier slide, I showed where the word language came from. It came from lingua, from the Greek or Latin. And then a different part is the semantics. So that deals with what does it mean, right? What does this word mean? And somewhere in between there is the syntax, so the form that we use to distinguish, form, and construct more elaborate meanings. And then the final part that I think that's crucial and that we can learn something from as conversational agents students is pragmatics. So that has to do with the context. So language is not used in isolation, it's always used in context. And that's also where it gets parts of its meaning from. So an example from this is things that you imply. So I have an example of this implicit nature of language. So this is a scenario that my teacher, Dutch man, always used to give. So imagine that there is a shoe shop and a customer, here denoted by A, enters the shop and says in Dutch, morgen, which means morning, good morning. The shoe repairman, who is depicted here, responds in kind saying morgen, which also means good morning. Then the customer says, puts his worn out boots on the counter there and says morgen, meaning tomorrow. Then the shoe repairman looks at the boots and says morgen, meaning tomorrow. Then the customer turns around, walks away, and at the door says morgen, meaning morning. And the shoe repair guy says morgen, meaning morning. So there we have it, 6 uses of the word morgen, and each of them means something different. And we can only get to the meaning if we know the context in which we have to interpret these. So the learning objective of this lecture is understanding the basics of linguistics and how this knowledge can be used to create and evaluate conversational agents. So what we're talking about is what people do when they use language, the types of forms they use and what that means for the meaning, and what they try to accomplish by using language and different forms that they use, so the function of language. And then how does that impact what we do when we try to create conversational agents? So an artificial system that uses language to try and accomplish some sort of goal or task. So these systems try to do something with us, or maybe to us, or for us, right? They try to impact us with the use of language. And by doing that, they need to adhere to the rules of human language use, because otherwise we don't understand them. And in this lecture, I hope to give you a bit more understanding of how human language works by looking at linguistics, and how we can use it in conversational agents. So some of the materials that we're using is obviously the book that we use throughout this course. And they're specifically chapter 3, so towards technology of conversation. There's a bit more background there. An optional reading is, if you can find this book, it's a very good book by Herbert Clark. It's an older book, but language doesn't change that quickly. It's called Using Language. And if you can find it, that offers some really good in-depth background. So I hope you enjoy. See you at the next part.